My hook is a 20-second video, but I'm using my laptop to record, and I will show you the video through my laptop. So I'm going to go on through the speech just like I was able to show you. That video is an accurate representation of what it's like to live with a sensory processing disorder. Today I'm going to talk to you about what it is, different types of sensory processing disorders, and how it's common in other disorders. First, I'm going to talk to you about what it is. Sensory processing disorders are the inability to interpret and analyze data through your senses, including touch, sight, sound, and smell. Some of the symptoms of sensory processing disorders are the difficulty distinguishing one sensation from another, also struggling with interacting in social life, just going through life in general, and succeeding at an occupation or school. Each person is entirely different. We each have a different brain. Every single brain is unique, just like a fingerprint. So each person has a different combination of symptoms, causing each person to experience a sensory situation differently. Some experience these in overstimulation or understimulation. Next, I'm going to talk to you about different types of sensory processing disorders. The first one I'm going to talk to you about is autism. People with autism usually struggle with social interactions, communication, and they usually really find activities that they do over and over and over again. 90% of children still struggle from their symptoms, including social interactions and communication struggles throughout their entire life. Doesn't go away. Doctors can diagnose autism within the first 3 years of a child being born. Autism is more common in males than females. Next, I'm going to talk to you about Asperger's. Asperger's is similar to autism, but not quite. It has more to do with social interactions. People with Asperger's often struggle being able to identify people's feelings, jokes, sarcasm, and facial expressions. This means that they take everything very literal. So you have to be careful about what you say, because it's very easy for them to misinterpret what you're saying. Autism is different from Asperger's because people with Asperger's usually don't have a speech problem. Asperger's is also a lot less severe than autism. They often have very strict schedules, and if there's a change, there's going to be a very big problem, which is also usually pretty common in most sensory processing disorders. Fact about Asperger's is they're also usually very smart people. People with sensory processing disorders are either overstimulated or understimulated. People who are overstimulated experience things very extremely. This often means that you see them plugging their ears, avoiding bright lights and loud noises. While people who are understimulated, they experience things a lot more mildly. This means that they usually love looking into bright lights, they love loud noises and big crowds. Next, I'm going to talk to you about how they're common in other disorders. Sensory processing disorders are often found in schizophrenia. They are usually understimulated, so they don't get enough input from their bodies and their environment. They often avoid sensory input completely. They also have trouble detecting vocal cues, just like people with Asperger's. A fact that I found was that before they did a whole bunch of research on sensory processing disorders, a person that would be diagnosed with a sensory processing disorder today would be diagnosed with early onset schizophrenia a long time ago. Next, I'm going to talk about learning disabilities. Most people with sensory processing disorders have learning disabilities. They often struggle with auditory and visual sensory input, and that's usually how most teachers teach, which makes it difficult, which is why sensory processing disorders often come hand in hand with learning disabilities. ADHD, which is attention deficit hypersensitivity disorder, often comes along with learning disabilities. 70% of kids with ADHD have a learning disability. Most strategies you can use for ADHD, you can also use for kids with learning disabilities and sensory processing disorders. Today I've talked to you about what it is, different types, and how it's common in other disorders. Now, if you come across someone with struggling with a sensory processing disorder, now you'll have a better understanding of their situation.